Wow, that's really effective.
Katie is going to introduce Jonathan to you, and hope you all stick around and get some video.
This is Jonathan Masse. He is a bit of a condo expert in Toronto, and he's got a great product that I think all of us should sign up for, and he's going to tell us about condos in Toronto and his product, which is pretty cool.
Strong endorsement. I'm going to actually start off by not talking about the product. I will start off by telling you that this presentation really is based off the fact that so I've been in real estate my whole career, but on the institutional side, I'm not a realtor. Working in asset management and appraisal and that kind of stuff. About 4 years ago, I was working on the condo market and really came to the realization, on the condo development side, not on the selling side, came to the realization that the condo industry in Toronto is fundamentally flawed. You people probably deal with this on a regular basis, but it only came to me about 3 years ago. And there are really three major challenges that realtors face when they're buying and selling condos. And so this presentation addresses all of those challenges. And I've worked with a handful of realtors over the past 3 years, including Kate, to develop a solution. So this presentation will go through the three challenges that realtors and myself have addressed, and then the solution kind of at the end. I know we're a little bit behind schedule, so I will be very efficient. So as I mentioned, we'll go through three main challenges. I'll introduce myself at the beginning. And so the three challenges that we're going to discuss are A, just the sheer size of the condo market today, the way it's grown over the past 5 years, the complexity, and then I think the most important piece is just the reliability of information in this market, the transparency or lack thereof. And then we'll discuss the new approach. So really quickly about myself, born and raised in Montreal, undergrad from Concordia, moved to Toronto right after undergrad and have made my way through the real estate world, starting in appraisal and working my way up through institutional real estate to the point now where I'm a director for a major company doing strategy and finance. And as I mentioned, 3-4 years ago is really when I came up with the fact that there is really a problem in the Toronto market, and in probably all markets in North America in terms of how transparent the market is and how complex the market is, and it doesn't have to be honest. So we'll talk about the evolution of the market really quickly. As everyone knows in this room, the Toronto condo market is very strong. Over the past 3 years alone, we've seen 5 new towers hit the market every single month. There are, just in Treb Central, there are over 1,100 towers for buyers to choose from. And it's ridiculous. It's overwhelming for most people. And most condo towers are built in great urban locations. They have very similar amenity sets. They have great locations. So they're very comparable. And so another slide just on that. This is 2016 Treb Stats Can numbers. You can see that the low rise on the left side versus the high rise on the right side. An overwhelming amount, 97% of homes built in Toronto are towers. They're not low rise. If they are low rise, they're typically people buying big homes, demolishing them, building 2 homes. That's usually the type of what falls into low rise these days. And it's even more pronounced if you look at Toronto Central at the top. 47 homes were built last year versus 6,700. So that's 99% of homes are condo, which is probably not shocking to anybody in this room. This is a map straight off a website called Urban Toronto. They track new developments. This does not factor in any of the 1,100 condos in this city. This is future. This is what's coming. So that's under construction, pre-construction. I was talking to the chief planner, Jennifer Keesmaat, 6 months ago. A lot of people complain that there's not enough homes in the city, and everyone blames the city of Toronto because they're not approving things fast enough. Jennifer Keesmaat admitted to me that there are 70,000 units pre-approved, ready to go today.
Oh, condos?
Condos. But the developers are smart, and they're not going to flood the market with the condos because then prices will go down. So they just hold on to them, they sit back, and they release them slowly. So this is the future on top of the 1,100 towers that already exist. And that's probably coming to market in the next 3 to 5 years. So what has that done? 2012 TREB numbers on the left used to be 57% freehold sales. We're now 4 years later. 2016 was the first year where condos outpaced freehold. And that will continue because we all know that most people my age or younger can't afford a home, a low-rise home. And most people, definitely younger than me in our office, do not want a car, and they do not. The transit in this city is below par. So, yeah. So everyone wants to be downtown. Nobody wants to live out. I mean, I live in Etobicoke, and people think I'm crazy. So that is the new reality. Another comparison: 2012, 2016. So the number of freehold listings per realtor were just under 1.6. In the last 4 years, that's dropped 33%. Not because there have been less freehold sales. As you can see, they've kind of been stagnant. But the number of realtors in the city has gone from 34,000 to 48,000. So just the number of low-rise sales for you guys has just gone down on a per-person basis. So that's the first problem. The first problem is there's just less to go around, and nobody can afford to buy the low-rise homes. The second problem is complexity. So not that condos are overly complicated, but they're way more complicated than freehold low-rise homes. So you've got your condo owners, your condo boards, your property managers, your third-party service providers, all of which are governed by the Condo Act, condo declarations, owners' meetings, condo rules. It goes on and on. And it's basically like, as opposed to dealing with a home, you're dealing with a business. And you've got to figure out that business for your clients. And how well is that business managed? Because it's managed by the condo owners, and those owners might be veterinarians or school teachers, or they're certainly not, it's rare that you get, a board of accountants in one board. So, or construction managers, or whatever it may be. And so this system of complexity creates a myriad of information for you guys, mostly in the status certificates, from budgets all the way down to the owner and visitor rules. Typical status certificate is 400 pages long. Most lawyers skim it. Realtors aren't legally allowed to give opinions on it. And so there's an issue of being able to advise your clients well, given the complexity in this situation. And so just to give you an example of that level of complexity, let's just take an imaginary condo building. Most realtors, even from day one, if they're looking at a listing with their clients, they'll kind of know the basics, the address, the unit number, size of the unit, the price, and maybe the price per square foot if they know the square footage off of MLS. One step further, you may know the building amenities, transit proximity, local area amenities, and that's kind of where it starts slowing down, and people don't really know as much about any given condo, the 1,100 condos in this city. But if you were able to have perfect information of all the stuff that I presented to you earlier, you'd be able to tell your clients about sales comparables and condo fees very, very quickly without having to do a ton of research. When it was built, how many suites are in the building, average suite size, comparables on that suite size. So the building typically is this size, and you've got neighborhoods, and how does that compare? The property manager, the developer, building rules for pet policy, short-term rentals, which is really quite contentious these days with Airbnb and may come to a head in the next couple of weeks, but TBD. On top of that, you've got renters versus owners. You can get from the status certificate, you can get how many renters are in the building versus owners, which is usually very important for people who are looking to either stay there long-term or maybe use it as an investment. The velocity of suites trading in that building. So do suites never come up for sale, or do they come up for sale weekly? That can affect a purchase in that building. how transient the building is. How does the building compare in terms of the cost to buy versus how financially healthy that building is? Something you can get out of a status certificate, but most people don't have the time or energy to go through that status certificate. Which projects have been done in the building lately? Older buildings have a lot of projects always on the go, new buildings almost none, but what's happened recently? These are all things, condo projections. From a status certificate, you can get where the condo fees are going to be in 10 years, more or less, with the reserve fund. And compare that to the average for the city and the neighborhood. Reserve fund is the last thing I'm going to touch on. From a status certificate, with my background in financial analysis, I've been able to gauge risk. So I can tell with some degree of accuracy the risk of a special assessment in a building. Just looking at the reserve fund that they've got right now, inflating for risk and cost inflation, that kind of thing. So this gives you an idea of all the things you could be talking to your clients about and the risks involved in buying specific condo towers versus others. So that's the complexity piece of it. I think the most important piece, though, and just because Trump's in the news all the time, lack of reliable information. So we know the market's huge. We know there's a ton of information out there, but it's impossible. It's very hard to get your hands on. So why is that? I think there's 4 main ways right now, and this is not science. This is just me trying to create a chart to display what I'm trying to talk about. But there's 4 ways. There's your personal experience with a condo tower. There's a listing agent, trusted lawyers, or your network. They all have their pros and cons. Personal experience is super timely. It's in your head. You know it. But it could have been 12 months you traded in that building or 24 months. So is it accurate? Probably not. Is it in depth? You probably don't remember half the stuff from 12 months ago or 24 months ago. So it's not a great way to have the information. A listing agent, super accurate because it's usually a fresh status certificate you're getting from them. But do they have it right away, or did they just order it and it's kind of coming in 8 days and you don't have time and it won't come before you have to make your offer? And then in depth, they won't do the analysis for you, so it really doesn't have that in-depthness. Trusted lawyers, just really quickly, they go into the most depth you can get right now, but they're not always available and they're not always accurate. They usually skim these things because we're seeing so many of them. Finally, realtor network. I've heard horror stories of people last minute trying to scramble to get information, and they're on Facebook groups asking for people for status certificates in it, and it's a stressful situation. So that is the current way. Why is this information so powerful? Right now, it's very hard for realtors to compare tower to tower, condo to condo. And so as a listing agent, if you had all this information that I've gone over, you'd be able to highlight to your clients the strengths of the building that you're trying to sell in, defend against any weaknesses that realtors might broach, and compare, as I mentioned, tower to tower. So you really are way more informed. You've got better credibility, better reputation, just because you have all this information at your fingertips. As a buyer's agent, you'll be able to streamline the process. Right now, when you're buying and selling condos, you only get that information, that status certificate, once you've made a purchase and sale agreement. It's been signed by both parties. Then you get the status to check. When we talk about the solution in 2 seconds, we're taking all the information and putting it at the beginning of the process. You don't waste your time going through with a hopeful buyer who wants to buy in this unit only to find out later there's Kitech plumbing or there's a special assessment or whatever it is, and then it can hurt that sale. It could even kill that sale. So avoiding all of those problems. So just to recap, we talked about the size of the market, the complexity of condos, the challenging aspects of getting that information, and then just the general market dysfunction with how frustrating it can be to actually get to, without tearing your hair out, trying to find all this information to be able to guide your clients. So last but not least, so we're going to talk about what I believe is a better approach, because most people would like it to be, the expectation on the left, but in reality, as I mentioned, some of the headaches and challenges with buying and selling condos, the reality tends to be on the right. So what I've done, in conjunction with the help of a bunch of realtors, is create a solution that centralizes all the information you want, all the information you need for every single tower in the city. We put it all in one spot online. We analyze that data, so we rank and score buildings based on financial health. So without even looking at a status certificate, you can tell this is a good building or a bad building. We look at financial audited statements, we look at reserve funds, and we've created a scoring system that at least shows realtors a range of good and bad options for their clients. It keeps you far away from the really nasty stuff and tries to focus you on the good things. It's also standardized, so every building has its own report. That report is the same for every building. And I've printed off some examples that I can pass around afterwards so you guys can kind of see what it looks like. And at the end of the day, you guys get exclusive, realtor exclusive reporting, so the general public doesn't have access to this stuff. The disclaimers on the front end of the service prohibit anybody but realtors using it. So it's not like any Joe Blow can come off the street and get that information and make decisions themselves. So in the reports themselves, as I mentioned, all that stuff when we were talking about complexity is on the site. So you can tell renters versus owners, you can tell the financial health of a building, whether there's a risk of a special assessment, what the pet policy is, what the short-term rental policy is. And so it's a really quick way to advise your clients. You can advise and it's also a dynamic service. So if you're on your cell phone or if you're on a tablet or if you're at home doing research, you can get that in any format. They're all custom branded. One of my friends and Kate's friends, Taylor, is up there now. She's a member on the service. And so when you send these things out to clients, they have not our logo and our name, but your name and your contact information. So it is coming from you, it's not coming from us.
Jonathan, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you keep this current?
So the things that we use to analyze buildings, so the audited financial statements and the reserve fund, those documents, especially the audited financials, come out once a year. So whether you pull a status certificate January 1st or December 31st, 12 months later, it's the same status. So from that aspect, we pull it annually. The reserve funds are created by outside specialists on a 3-year basis. So those still get pulled once a year when we pull the status, but they probably won't change for 3 years. What we're doing with other groups in the city is we're creating a bit of an affiliation. And so if there's a brokerage that does a lot of condos, we partner up with them. They share all their status with us, all the status certificates they get with us, and then we in turn give them a really reduced rate because then we don't have to go out and get the information. So we've done that with about 3 or 4 brokerages now, just finalizing those agreements. And so we will update as many times as we get them, but minimum once a year because we need the financial and the reserve fund data. The thing that this doesn't touch with a 10-foot pole is legal. My father, I'm lucky enough to have a father who's a real estate lawyer, and the one thing that makes a status certificate, maybe it's come up in the past, people said, well, these things are only good for 30 days, and that's because the unit-specific legal information needs to get pulled right before the purchase. So you can see if there's any liens, if they're not paying their condo fees, whatever it is, but it is completely separate. That legal aspect is completely separate from the actual building and how it's functioning. So when you're buying a unit in a building, this does not replace, at the end of the day, having to buy a status certificate just to check the legal, but you can have good certainty that the buildings run well with this service, but you don't know about the unit specifically. So we don't try to go in that and try to talk about, if we talked about every unit and its legalities, and I think we would mire everybody in too much detail. So we're pulling these things, and this site is updated monthly because we're adding buildings on a monthly basis, so everything gets cleaned up and wiped and so the scores and the financial health of every building is changing on a monthly basis as well. Yes?
Do you cover any future buildings?
So we don't cover future buildings at this point. The one thing that we didn't cover before, but we do cover now based on feedback, is I wasn't covering any buildings that I didn't have the financials for. So a building that was built in 2016, last year, we didn't have, I need 2 years of financials to be able to analyze the building. And so I didn't add any buildings from 2016, 2015. I kind of started in 2014 because now we're up and running. We've got enough information. Another brokerage said to me, well, could you just give us a summary report of buildings that you don't have the financials for? Because at a status certificate, I can still get half of this information. So now we're in the middle of, on the back end, we're creating 2 types of reports. What I've got hard copies of here, which are detailed, and then a summary report, which just gives a very basic, you're going to get your renters versus owners, your policies, everything. You just won't, I won't be scoring it because I don't have the information. The other reason for this summary versus detailed is because the one thing that has also come up is, well, I've gotten all the way to almost selling somebody on buying this unit, and it's the fifth best tower in the city. It's ranked 5th. And then I show them this report, and they're like, well, what about 4321? What about those other towers, right? So the summary report also removes any reference to ranking, any reference to score, any reference to any of that stuff. So a realtor can choose whether they want to show the dirt or if they just want to kind of give a high-level summary.
This seems to be like a snapshot of the current health of the condo.
Yeah.
What happens if you wanted to look at a past history? Maybe this is the best it's ever been. And
Right,
it's
100%.
an exception.
So because I've only started, I only have like this year, the goal, which I've explained to many people, the goal is, and the cool part about this is not just the 1-year snapshot, as you mentioned, it's being able to see a building move through, either it's going down or it's going up. Unfortunately, that's probably at like a 3-year mark when I've got enough data to start looking at whether things are going up or down. And it'll be interesting. I'll probably be able to get as accurate as saying, oh, there was a major board change here, and look, the thing went up, the building went up, or the building went down. Because I've heard horror stories about, bad board members doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. So that can certainly impact, or changing the management of a company, of the tower, or what have you. So what we'll be able to start doing eventually over time is being able to forecast and trend kind of how things are doing. But yeah, that's definitely...
So it's up to the future, but not to the past. Like if I wanted to know the last 5 years, even 3 years from now, when you get that in place,
Yeah.
will we have?
Yeah, so 3 years from now, you'll have 3 years of history.
But not 5 years from today back. Not all of history.
Right, no, I mean, I guess...
It's
I
only
haven't...
from now on.
Right, because I haven't spoken to condo buildings as to whether they're gonna, because these audited financials have to be stored in the accounting companies. I guess eventually I could go back and try to dig, but I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah. So as I mentioned, key information. So anything we've discussed, you guys need and want is on this service. We do our own analysis, so you guys don't have to go digging through a status certificate to figure out whether a building's healthy or not in terms from a financial perspective. They're all custom branded, as I mentioned, and then they're shareable in multiple formats. We've made them shareable just via email. You can PDF them for MLS attachment. You can PDF them for printing. You can share these any which way you want, and you can share summaries or details. Yeah?
Will you have things on it where it says building had contact, plumbing, it's been resolved, or there was a lawsuit, you mentioned liens and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Lawsuits pending or
Yeah.
resolved? Sorry.
On a legal, from a legal, because I'm not a lawyer and I don't employ a lawyer, we don't comment on legal stuff. If I do find Kitech in the status certificate, I do highlight it.
Okay.
But I don't give a status update because that could change from day to day and I don't want to. So if there ever was Kitech, even if it's resolved, I just flag it. So you guys can ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that accessible? How can you get this information in no particular?
How do I get it or how do you get it?
I.
So what we do, there's a couple ways. The most popular way so far is the brokerage. Depending on how the brokerage is set up, usually I negotiate with the brokerage to provide services for either a large chunk or the whole brokerage at a much discounted rate than I would just if you were coming off the street. And so it's a conversation I guess I have to have going forward with Keller Williams and just figure out what that is. But that's usually the way that it works because it's way more cost effective for you. It's way more advantageous for me because then, if I team up with the right brokerages, as I mentioned, I don't have to go hunting for status certificates, which I still do, but I mean less so. I think it'll probably be, even at the end of the day, I'll be buying 50% of the information I need, and the rest will be provided by brokerages. So yeah, next step. These, as I mentioned, these are updated monthly, and buildings are added monthly as well. At a minimum, 3 buildings a month. But with the traction I'm having so far, it'll probably be more. I just don't want to guarantee. That's kind of the minimum I'm expecting to add, but it should ramp up more quickly than that. And then on top of that, I'm toying with the idea of creating a newsletter, just to give. So you don't have to go to the site. It's just high-level market information. So sound bites and stuff you can use with clients in terms of how the market's doing and different buildings that have been added and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Of the 1,100, of the 1,100 buildings in the city now, how many are in the system?
So to launch, because I had to pay for each one myself, to launch we started with 100 biggest buildings. So we've got 100, and I actually have that on the next slide. So we've got 100 biggest buildings in the urban core, south of Dundas, and the goal is to, as I mentioned, partner up with brokerages like KW and get. I'm fairly certain that based on the conversations I've had in the last month or so, that working with brokerages, I'll be able to ramp this up really quickly. I'm assuming I'll be able to get to 500 by the end of the year. So the goal is, yeah. People like when I went to I'm just don't want to name names, but really focused condo guys have told me that they are sitting on hundreds of these things. So it's just a matter of going through the process of getting them on board. So yeah, I don't want to. I think it'll be quite quick to get. So we're at 100. I think we will get to 1,100. Eventually, we'll get to the GTA, which is 2,000. The goal is to have every single major condo development in this city on here, so you don't have to go hunting for anything. It's all at your fingertips. And yeah, so that's, I tried to go through, sorry.
Oh, this is in case you have any extra time
Yeah.
in your life, it'd be great if you attached floor plans. Units.
So,
That's the first question.
That would be really good.
so what's really interesting? This is a debate that I've had with multiple realtors. People like Larry Sage at Sage Real Estate, like, I have a vault of floor plans, just take them. And then other people are like, well, you don't want to muddy the waters because there's companies that already do status certificates, and I haven't done the research to know whether that's true or not, but I would say 90% of realtors have told me they want the floor plans, and then some people are like, I don't think that's it. Like, so the thought process, that's a great idea. Yeah. The only thing you get is floor plans. Yeah, eh? So I'll talk to Larry. Yeah. And once they've done pre-selling the condos, like the developers they're gone. Yeah. So, it's definitely, I would say that's top of mind in terms of, and what I've created here is really what I would consider a bare bones service. Even though it offers all this stuff, I probably got, including the floor plans, about 10 to 20 new things that I want to add to this as we go forward. But it's really about creating a conversation with realtors and what do you guys, so I've heard that now 10 times, so it's now at the top of the list. And some things I thought were really useful have come to the bottom of the list because they may not fit in with what people are looking for. So it really is an ongoing conversation to make sure that, and that's how this started 3 years ago, talking to Taylor about when I bought my first home, talking to her about, do you find this frustrating? Is this something? And then we started a 1-hour rant about it, and that's how this thing came to be. And I've talked about I've had 50 one-on-one conversations with realtors, and they've steered me in pretty much all the same direction with little nips and tucks along the way. But that's where we are today. So I think it's a great question. Yeah.
I think you should put on where lockboxes are located.
Oh my gosh, that would be
a GPS function where you could walk to the lockbox.
Or and rate the concierge.
Right. You know what? The other
I
thing.
kid with them all the time.
The other thing I'd like to do, which is this very much in line with what you're saying, is so I rank these buildings from an objective perspective. No subjectivity. I don't care what the building looks like. I don't care whether the concierge is a pain in the ass. I don't care if the parking situation sucks. But you guys do. But I don't want to comment on it because what I think is great, you might hate. So the thing is, what I'd like to do is create a separate situation or a separate ranking where a realtor can put their 2 cents in. It doesn't affect what I'm saying. But you can read through people's notes being like, oh, that guy's a real pain in the ass, or don't park here, park there, or whatever. And you guys almost have like a running Cole's notes about what the building has. Yeah. So that's another big thing that's at the top
There's
also
of the list.
some issues with, like, some units in front of buildings have issues. Like, I was in the car yesterday, was showing a condo.
Yeah.
That guy has a friend that lives in the condo next door, and he says, well, did this unit have water issues? And I'm going, no, I don't think so. But
Right.
I don't know for sure. But he
Right.
found out from his friend that one unit in the building next door.
And all of a sudden,
All
yeah.
of a sudden, this guy, okay, maybe I need to dig into this.
Right.
But if you have comments from realtors,
Yeah.
those things you could figure out.
Yep, and make it easy. The goal is to make it as easy as possible. So after you're done, or before you get there, whatever it is, you can just type in a couple comments and it's there. It's not a pain in the butt. So you have to sign in, whatever. It's just really super easy.
Do you have, with each condo, do you include things like concierge phone numbers, management numbers?
So I do want to. They're not there now, but that's another thing that's come up is phone numbers. So I think that's a pretty easy. That's a pretty easy add. I've got the developer working on that summary report versus detail report. I think I might just at least put in the space so I can start adding the numbers in. That wouldn't be, yeah, so that's definitely something. Because what is on the, I can, here, might as well, while we're,
We look up the old MLS listings for that phone number sometimes.
you guys have to go into like old MLS stuff. So I'll just, you can take a look at.
Thank you.
No problem. Just pass them around. These are all, some of these are duplicates, but yeah. And just get those. So yeah, I try to be relatively efficient with my time. I know that.
So I don't know if you answered this because I was like just working on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
When you say it's updated monthly,
Yep.
is that also you double check all amenities monthly as well?
I don't necessarily double check the amenities. What's
Okay.
updated, the update is, so when I add buildings, all the rankings and scores are tied to one another. So for instance, if building A does really, really well, and I put that building into the ranking, it affects all the other buildings. So that's what I mean by updated monthly. The financials won't change, the reserve fund won't change, the amenities don't. I mean, that's probably something I could check. I don't know how often amenities change, but I could check it on a monthly basis. Or maybe once I've got a system where realtors are commenting and they're like, oh, by the way, that movie room's gone.
Yeah.
Or whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
you guys can just highlight that. That might be the easiest way because you guys are on site, right?
You should make it like make a direct comment to you. Like,
Right.
if something has changed. quickly,
Right, like a
and then
private-
say the amenities or whatever, and it gets sent to
That's a
you,
great-
as opposed to all of us
Yeah.
kind of bitching in the back.
Or having to like scroll
And you
through
have to
the
read through all of
That's a great,
Yeah.
that's really like like a direct message
Yeah.
function. That's
Heads
really,
up,
really cool.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's great. Or if I haven't flagged high tech and you guys find out it's there or whatever, it's almost one of those like I want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to very quickly assess a condo. You won't have, you'll still need to do the status at the end of the process, but there will be, the goal is to have no shocks. You know, you're going to get to the end of that road and you're going to be like, yep, this is exactly what I suspected. So, yeah,
I guess the other, one of them too is the more readability.
right.
There's some places that won't take it.
Well, here's the thing. Like I've done 100 of these now. Like there's 100 on this site. There's definitely at the bottom of the pile some stuff as a banker. I mean, I'm not a banker, but I wouldn't touch with the 10-foot pole. Like they'll be in special assessment territory in perpetuity. Yeah.
I noticed that you had like how many units sold in the building.
Yep.
Can you break that down? Because I often get questions, like I'm dealing with a client now. that
Yeah.
lost. The offer wasn't accepted, and now he's wondering how often do 2-bedroom condos come up in the market?
So the information comes from Urbanation, which is probably the golden standard. They don't break it down, so I don't have the information. I don't know how we would get the information.
What sales?
Like if a specific like,
Unit type, yeah.
Geo warehouse.
I would have to go on.
Geo?
the website and search.
That might,
Yeah.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
of our committee that way.
Yes, sir.
Do you deal with buildings pre-registrations, so like assignment sales?
Like that. So the condo corporation has to exist.
There's no standing.
Yeah, yeah. That'd be great. I mean, it's probably maybe it's a future thing, but right now it's just yeah. If I can get a status certificate, it'll be part of this. Yeah. So yeah, that's and I'd love to if you think of any questions or whatever, like I will give my Irene and Kate already have my contact information, but I know sometimes questions and stuff don't come to people right away, so I'm. These things are good for me. It's not just about presenting and talking about the risks. It's really like having this conversation with you guys to understand if there's anything I'm missing or if anything can be improved or whatever. I'm assuming that I'll be doing these in perpetuity to just show new and upcoming features and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
What's price point?
So if you just came off the street, this is.
If it's been done.
Thanks. I'll just go to what we typically do, which is so for brokerages that have enough interest, we're doing I think it's $10 a month flat, and that gives you access to all the buildings, whether we're today at 100 or tomorrow at 500, it doesn't matter. That will go up eventually as we have everything, but to start off, I wanted to make it really palatable and easy for people to kind of start using it and having that kind of symbiotic relationship where you guys hand me the information that you have, and then I provide analysis on that information, and we kind of and then I've got the funds to be able to create direct message boards or some kind of back feature where you guys can comment on buildings and that kind of thing. So yeah, we're at the first baby steps, if you will.
It's really good.
Thank you.
So it's
Thank you.
$10 per month per agent?
Yeah. So. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. So, but typically, what I've experienced with the other brokerages is that, especially the urban ones, they just pay for the brokerage. Like they pay for everybody, right? And then what happens is I will disseminate passwords to everybody, and then you'll go to the website, you'll put in your password, and then all the credit card information will just disappear, and you'll be able to create your account without a cost.
And is it less than that if the whole brokerage goes with you?
So if you were on the site today, it's $25.
Oh,
Per month per realtor. That is like, I've put that up there as in the future. I don't expect anybody will pay that number because a lot of, like everyone's coming through brokerages right now. And there's also a referral feature that if you knew somebody who's already on the service that you get also a heavily discounted version. So I wanted to keep the future full price on the website from day one so that you're not seeing any kind of escalation. It's really discounts today for people who are using it right at the very beginning, and then we kind of go up from there. But I don't expect it'll be $25 anytime soon. So yeah.
So shall we send you?
Yeah, definitely.
Can we send you status certificates then?
Yeah, you can send me status certificates today, and I can turn them around in about 48 hours.
So if we get them from other agents, are we allowed to send it to him?
Technically, anybody. So my dad's reviewed the Condominium Act, and anybody is allowed to have a status certificate,
Yeah,
whether
no,
you're
yeah, anybody.
whether you're a corporation in Germany or an
Yeah,
individual.
but if another agent gave it to me,
Yeah.
can I give it to you?
It
Yes.
was ordered, it was paid for.
Yeah. As long as there was a transaction,
Yeah.
then you're good. Yeah. You can't use it. Let's say it's 30 days. It's over 30 days old. You can't use that in a purchase and sale, but you can share it. Yeah.
Is there, if it takes some time for the brokerage to get set up, is there some
Yep.
pay for use?
Not at this point, but I have been the founder. I have access to be able to discount in the back end, so that's not an issue. No problem. We'll be in
Okay,
touch.
guys, we'll discuss all of this for you. It sounds very exciting. Let's just leave it
Yeah,
there.
good to see you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely open to that, and I'm really glad you guys were able to stay and give me
No,
an
it's really good.